Right now, look at whatever is in your hand. Maybe it's your phone, maybe it's a pen, maybe it's a coffee cup. You didn't think twice about picking it up. You just reached out and grabbed it. That motion felt like nothing, like breathing. But that exact motion, that specific, automatic, effortless grip, is the reason you are here and every other species on this planet is not. No gorilla can do what you just did. And a gorilla is 8 times stronger than you. It could snap your arm like a twig, but it cannot hold that phone the way you're holding it right now. Not the way you do. Not with that precision, not with that control. No dolphin, no elephant, no crow. And crows are terrifyingly intelligent. They use tools, they recognize faces, they hold grudges. But they cannot do what you just did without thinking. Here's what's strange. The thing that separated us from every other species on Earth wasn't fire. It wasn't language. It wasn't even the size of our brains. All of those came later. All of those were consequences. The thing that started everything happened 3.3 million years ago in what is now Kenya, and we almost missed it entirely. In 2015, researchers digging near Lake Turkana found something that rewrote the timeline of human history: stone tools. Sharp edged, deliberately shaped, unmistakably made by something with intent. The problem was the date: 3.3 million years old. That's 700,000 years before our genus, Homo, even existed. Something was making tools before we were human. The tools were crude: rocks smashed against rocks to create a cutting edge. No elegance, no sophistication. But they required something that no other creature on the planet had ever demonstrated before. They required a mind that could look at a rock and see what it could become. Not what it was, what it could be. That is the gap. That is the thing that splits the entire history of life on Earth into two halves. Every species that ever lived sees the world as it is. Only one ever learned to see the world as it could be remade. And it all started with a hand wrapped around a rock. The same hand you just used without thinking. Here is what that first tool actually did to us. Not metaphorically, not philosophically, physically. It rewired the human body from the inside out over millions of years in ways that are still running inside you right now. Start with food. Before tools, our ancestors were eating what they could tear apart with their hands and teeth: soft fruit, leaves, the occasional insect. The same diet every other primate around them was eating, and the same brain size to match. Because brain tissue is the most expensive thing a body can run. It burns 20% of your calories while sitting completely still. You cannot grow a big brain on leaves and fruit. There simply isn't enough fuel. Then something changed. A sharp stone edge pressed against a bone opens it up. Inside that bone is marrow. Dense, dripping, calorie-packed fat that no other animal could access. The hyenas had already eaten the muscle. The vultures had already picked the carcass clean. But the marrow was locked inside the thickest leg bones, untouchable, until something figured out how to smash them open. That something was us. And here is where it gets strange. More calories meant a slightly larger brain. A slightly larger brain meant better tools. Better tools meant more calories. The loop ran for 2 million years, every generation a little sharper, every generation a little more capable, until the brain that started the size of a chimpanzee's ended up 3 times larger. The tool didn't just feed the brain, the tool built it. But the body paid a price for that bargain. Look at your hand again. That grip, the one that feels so natural, required something radical. Most primates have hands optimized for one thing: climbing. Long fingers, short thumbs, built to wrap around branches. Ours are different. The human thumb is longer relative to the fingers than any other primate on Earth. It can touch every other finger with precision. It was redesigned generation by generation under the pressure of tool use until it became the most precise gripping instrument in the known animal kingdom. You didn't inherit a hand, you inherited 2 million years of engineering. And here is the part that should stop you cold. The brain that grew to use the tools also grew to imagine things that didn't exist. It grew to plan, to anticipate, to look at the world not as it was, but as it could be changed. That is not a small upgrade. That is the entire distance between an animal and everything humans have ever built. But here is what nobody tells you. That same tool, the one that built your brain and redesigned your hand and unlocked more calories than any creature had ever accessed before, was also the most destructive force that ever appeared on this planet. Not a meteor, not a volcano, not an ice age, us, with rocks. When modern humans arrived in Australia roughly 50,000 years ago, the continent was full of creatures that had never seen anything like them. Giant wombats the size of cars, marsupial lions, a lizard nearly 30 feet long, a bird twice the height of an ostrich. These animals had survived every climate shift, every drought, every natural disaster the continent had thrown at them for millions of years. Within a few thousand years of human arrival, 23 species of megafauna were gone. Not most of them, all of them. Scientists argued about this for decades. Climate change, they said, natural shifts. But the timing was too precise. Everywhere modern humans went, with their tools and their spears and their coordinated hunting strategies, the large animals collapsed. North America lost 34 genera of large mammals after humans arrived. South America lost 50. New Zealand, settled by humans only 700 years ago, lost every species of giant bird within 2 centuries. The pattern is the same everywhere. Humans show up, the megafauna disappears. The animals never had a chance. They had spent millions of years evolving responses to predators. Predators that chased them, that they could outrun, that their size could intimidate. Nothing in their evolutionary history prepared them for a creature that could kill from a distance, coordinate in groups, and systematically track them across an entire landscape. There was no defense against that. Evolution works over thousands of generations. Extinction happens faster. And here is the thing that makes it uncomfortable. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't ignorance. It was the same intelligence, the same foresight, the same capacity to look at the world and see how it could be remade that built every civilization you have ever admired. The Sistine Chapel and the extinction of the mammoth came from the exact same place. The same brain, the same hands, the same tool. The capacity to reshape the world does not come with a setting for how much reshaping is too much. It never did. And we have been learning that lesson slowly and expensively ever since. So go back to that object in your hand. You've been holding it this whole time. Or you set it down and picked it up again without noticing. Either way, it found its way back to your hand. Because that is what human hands do. They reach for things. They hold things. They remake things. That impulse is so deep it doesn't feel like a choice anymore. It just feels like being alive. The first person who picked up a rock in Kenya 3.3 million years ago didn't know what they were starting. They weren't thinking about civilization. They weren't thinking about consequences. They were hungry, and there was food locked inside a bone. A sharp edge could get to it. That was the whole thought. That was the entire plan. But that moment cracked the world open. Every human who ever lived stood somewhere in that chain. The person who figured out that fire could be carried in a clay pot. The person who realized a wheel could move weight that no body could carry. The person who discovered that certain symbols pressed into clay could hold a thought across 1,000 years. Every single one of them was doing the same thing that anonymous ancestor did in Kenya. Looking at the world as it was, reaching for what it could become. You are at the end of that chain. So far from the beginning that the beginning feels like mythology. But the chain is unbroken. The same hands, the same impulse, the same gap between what exists and what could exist, that your ancestors felt standing over a carcass on the African savanna. And now that chain is about to do something it has never done before. The next tool is not made of stone, it is not made of steel, it does not fit in your hand. And for the first time in 3.3 million years, the tool we are building can look back at us, can learn from us, can, in ways we do not fully understand yet, begin to remake things on its own. Every previous tool waited to be picked up. This one doesn't. We have been here before, in a way, standing at the edge of something we created, not fully understanding what it does, not fully understanding what it costs, reaching for it anyway because that is what we are. That is what we have always been. You're still holding it, aren't you?